Trump is scrambling for a deal with Canada, and it's not going well. While the world watches Trump's trade war unfold, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney just completed his second visit to the White House, and the results reveal just how desperate Trump has become. We're talking about a president who promised easy wins on trade, now begging for negotiations while his own tariff policies are backfiring spectacularly. This isn't just about two countries having a disagreement. This is about Trump's entire economic strategy crumbling in real time, and Carney exposing every weakness along the way. So what exactly happened in that Oval Office meeting? And why is Trump suddenly talking about mutual love while simultaneously threatening Canada's economy? To understand this mess, we need to rewind to how we got here, and it's a story of broken promises, missed deadlines, and Trump's complete inability to close a deal. The current crisis began when Trump and Carney agreed back in June to reach a comprehensive trade agreement within 30 days.
Mr. Speaker, I remember the Leader of the Opposition and some of his colleagues criticizing for the government for not having enough direct face-to-face engagement with the President of the United States. So good news, Mr. Speaker. The President has invited the Prime Minister to a working meeting tomorrow in Washington, followed by a working lunch. Obviously, Mr. Speaker, the conversation will center on trade issues and what we want to do to protect Canadian industries and Canadian workers, at the same time building an economy in North America that's in the interest of both countries. And the discussion will also talk about a series of other international issues.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Surely, after promising to negotiate a win, to have a deal by July the 21st, the Prime Minister's not flying all the way to Washington, D.C. just to have lunch. By the sounds of it, that's all they are going to accomplish, Mr. Speaker. We've seen since he promised this win, American tariffs on Canada have doubled. The Prime Minister has caved on counter tariffs on the digital services tax and on everything else, and 86,000 Canadians have lost their jobs as a result of his weakness. Surely the Prime Minister will finally keep his promise and come home with a win. What will it be?
That deadline came and went with no deal. Then Trump, clearly frustrated, extended the deadline to August 1st and threatened to increase tariffs if no agreement was reached. Once again, talks failed completely, and Trump followed through on his threat, raising border security and fentanyl-related tariffs from 25 to 35%. But here's where it gets interesting and where Trump's strategy starts falling apart. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. Trump's tariff war is hammering real Canadian industries: steel, aluminum, automobiles, and now softwood lumber. The human cost is mounting, with job losses and economic uncertainty spreading across both sides of the border. Yet despite all this economic pain, Trump still can't get the deal he wants. What makes this situation even more embarrassing for Trump is that his own tariffs are backfiring on American consumers. The Tax Foundation calls Trump's trade program the largest tax hike since 1993, and American businesses are the ones actually paying these tariffs, not foreign countries, as Trump repeatedly claims. His trade war has fueled inflation south of the border while adding billions to the U.S. Treasury, money that comes directly from American wallets. Meanwhile, Carney has been playing a much smarter game. Rather than engaging in Trump's bombastic rhetoric, Canada has taken a strategic approach. When Trump demanded Canada drop its digital services tax, Carney complied. When Trump wanted Canada to remove retaliatory tariffs, Carney did that too, calling it a gesture of goodwill to restart negotiations.
Heading into this meeting is the possibility of steel tariffs being lowered, some partial relief. This is according to 3 senior Canadian government sources speaking to CBC News and Radio Canada. And the overall goal, according to these sources, is this could create a new framework to lower more sectoral tariffs in the future. Now, the key word in all of this is expectation, and that was stressed to us by our sources. Everyone is being cautious because U.S. President Donald Trump is so unpredictable. In the past, Canadian officials thought breakthroughs had been made, that deals were close, and then things go sideways unexpectedly.
Absolutely. So what else does Canada want to achieve here?
This is a chance for relationship building. Things are in a better place than Prime Minister Trudeau's final months in office, but it still has...
But despite these concessions, Trump still can't deliver his promised win. The latest meeting reveals just how weak Trump's position has become. During their Oval Office session, Trump exhibited what can only be described as desperation, telling reporters that Canada will love us again and promising that Carney would walk away very happy. This is the same president who once boasted about being the ultimate deal maker, now reduced to making vague promises about announcements a little bit later on. Trump's contradictory statements during the meeting expose his fundamental confusion about the relationship. He simultaneously claimed there's mutual love between the countries, while admitting there's natural conflict because he wants to displace Canadian-made cars and steel with domestic supply.
More complicated maybe than any other agreement we have on trade because, we have natural conflict. We also have mutual love. We have great love for each other. I love this. I love Canada and the people of Canada. And Mark feels the same way about here. The problem we have is that they want a car company and I want a car company, meaning the U.S. wants a car company. And they want steel and we want steel. So in other countries, they're very far away. And there's no problem. You can compete and you can do. We don't like to compete because we sort of hurt each other when we compete. And so we have a natural conflict. It's a natural business conflict. Nothing wrong with it. And I think we've come a long way over the last few months, actually, in terms of that relationship. So when it comes to trade, the United States was always giving everything. They gave everything to Canada. They would let car companies leave here and go to Canada. But that hurts the United States. And, other presidents didn't see that. They weren't business-oriented. They might have been good politicians in some cases, not in all cases. They were bad at both. But it's a very natural conflict, and it's something that we're working out.
Canada has offered a lot of compromise this summer. Are you willing to...
This isn't the language of a confident negotiator. It's the rambling of someone who's painted himself into a corner. The economic reality makes Trump's position even more precarious. Canada's unemployment rate has risen to 7.1%, the highest in 9 years, partly due to Trump's tariffs on key Canadian exports. But this economic pressure hasn't translated into the compliance Trump expected. Instead, it's created a situation where both countries are suffering, with no clear path forward. Carney's strategic patience is paying dividends. While Trump has been imposing tariff after tariff, steel, aluminum, automobiles, copper, and now lumber and furniture, Canada has maintained access to the U.S. market for over 85% of its goods under the USMCA agreement. The average U.S. tariff rate on Canadian goods remains at just 5.6%, the lowest among all U.S. trading partners. This puts Trump in an impossible position. He can't claim victory because he hasn't achieved his goals, but he can't escalate much further without completely destroying the USMCA agreement that his own administration negotiated. The agreement is up for review in 2026, and Trump knows that Canada holds significant leverage in those discussions. The lumber tariffs announced just last week perfectly illustrate Trump's desperation. Softwood lumber is among the top goods the United States imports from Canada, and hitting it with tariffs will directly impact American consumers and businesses who rely on Canadian wood products. This isn't strategic, it's lashing out. Trump's recent comments about Canada becoming the 51st state add another layer of absurdity to this situation. During a speech to military leaders, he suggested Canada could get missile defense coverage for free if it just joined the United States.
To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free.
Canada's point person on U.S. trade says he's optimistic some sort of agreement can still be reached as industry deals with biting tariffs on the steel, aluminum, auto, and lumber sectors.
This isn't serious diplomacy, it's the fantasy of a president who's run out of actual negotiating tools. The human cost of Trump's failed strategy is mounting on both sides of the border. Canadian steel and aluminum workers are facing uncertainty. American manufacturers who depend on Canadian raw materials are dealing with higher costs. Consumers in both countries are paying more for everyday goods. All of this pain, and Trump still doesn't have his deal. Carney's approach reveals the stark contrast in leadership styles. While Trump makes threats and imposes tariffs, Carney focuses on maintaining the broader relationship. He's kept Canada in the USMCA framework, preserved tariff-free access for most Canadian goods and positioned Canada for the upcoming 2026 review. Most importantly, he's avoided getting dragged into Trump's chaos. The timing of this latest meeting is particularly telling. With Canada's economy struggling and Trump claiming momentum, this should have been his moment to extract major concessions. Instead, the best he could offer were vague promises about treating Canada fairly and announcements coming later on. That's not strength, that's stalling. Trump's inability to close this deal exposes the fundamental weakness of his entire trade approach. Tariffs work as leverage only if the other side needs something you have more than you need what they're offering. But the US-Canada relationship is too interconnected for this kind of brute force approach to succeed. Consider the numbers. About $2.5 billion worth of goods and services cross the border each day. Canada is the top export destination for 36 US states. About 60% of US crude oil imports come from Canada, along with 85% of US electricity imports. Canada is the largest foreign supplier of steel, aluminum, and uranium to the US. Canada has 34 critical minerals and metals that the Pentagon considers essential for national security.
For example, energy security, oil, gas, some $70 billion in Canadian wealth has been transferred to the United States of America by giving them discounted oil. But we can put other things in the window. Critical minerals, something that are in large abundance within Canada, something that the United States needs. Uranium is a commodity which they really need, especially as they ramp up their nuclear program. And we can create right of first refusals or preferential treatment for the United States in some of those areas. And around defense, we're going to be increasing our defense spending almost 3 times, up to probably $150 to $160 billion a year by 2035. Right now, 75% of that to 85% is spent on kit from the United States of America. We can divert that. We can buy it from other places in the world, or we can commit to continuing relationship with the United States of America. So we have a lot of tools at our disposal, and quite frankly, we can create a lot of pain points for the United States should they persist in wanting to declare economic war on us.
This interdependence means that Trump's tariffs hurt American interests almost as much as Canadian ones. Every steel tariff makes American manufacturers less competitive. Every aluminum duty increases costs for American automakers. Every lumber tariff drives up housing costs for American families. Trump promised to make other countries pay, but Americans are footing the bill. The political implications are equally damaging for Trump. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has been hammering Carney for failing to deliver a deal, but the criticism applies equally to Trump. He's the one who set the deadlines. He's the one who made the threats. He's the one who promised easy wins on trade. The fact that he can't close a deal with America's closest ally raises serious questions about his negotiating abilities. International observers are watching this debacle with concern. If Trump can't manage the relationship with Canada, a country that shares the world's longest undefended border, has deep cultural ties, and generally wants good relations with the United States, how can he handle more complex relationships with actual adversaries? The upcoming USMCA review in 2026 looms over everything. Trump knows that if he pushes too hard now, he risks having Canada and Mexico form a united front against U.S. demands during the formal review process. Carney has already signaled that Canada sees the current agreement as advantageous and isn't eager for major changes. Trump's strategy of using sector-specific tariffs as leverage may have backfired entirely. Rather than forcing Canada to accept a broader deal, it's given Canada incentive to focus on preserving the USMCA framework while seeking narrow relief on specific issues. This piecemeal approach benefits Canada more than the United States. The steel and aluminum sectors perfectly illustrate this dynamic. Trump imposed these tariffs claiming national security concerns, but they've primarily hurt American manufacturers who depend on Canadian inputs. Now he's in the awkward position of potentially having to provide relief to save American jobs, hardly the position of strength he intended. Carney's patient approach is working because it recognizes a fundamental truth that Trump seems to miss. Canada doesn't need to win every battle to win the war. by maintaining access under USMCA for most goods. While working on sector-specific issues, Canada is playing a longer game that Trump's impulsive style can't match. The economic data supports Carney's strategy. Despite all of Trump's tariffs and threats, Canada remains America's largest trading partner. The relationship continues to generate enormous benefits for both countries. Trump's tariffs are like trying to perform surgery with a sledgehammer. They cause damage without achieving the desired precision. Trump's latest lumber tariffs reveal just how desperate he's become. Lumber and timber, kitchen cabinets, vanities, and furniture, these aren't strategic industries that threaten American national security. They're sectors where Canadian suppliers have natural advantages that benefit American consumers. Hitting them with tariffs is pure spite. The broader implications extend far beyond North America. Other countries are watching how Trump handles the Canada relationship as a preview of their own potential dealings. If he can't maintain good relations with America's closest ally, why would anyone else trust his word on trade agreements? Carney's success in this impossible situation demonstrates the power of strategic patience over impulsive action. While Trump has been making threats and imposing tariffs, Carney has been building relationships, maintaining frameworks, and positioning Canada for long-term success. It's a masterclass in how smaller countries can effectively deal with larger, more aggressive neighbors. The meeting's aftermath tells the real story. Trump promised announcements that never came. He talked about deals that remain elusive. He made vague statements about fairness while continuing policies that harm both countries. Meanwhile, Carney returned to Canada having given up nothing substantial while maintaining Canada's advantageous position. This isn't how Trump's trade war was supposed to work. He promised that tariffs would bring other countries to their knees, begging for deals on American terms. Instead, he's the one who seems desperate for agreement, reduced to making empty promises about future announcements while his policies continue to backfire. The human cost of this failure continues to mount. Canadian workers in targeted industries face uncertainty. American consumers pay higher prices. Both economies suffer from reduced efficiency and increased friction in what should be one of the world's smoothest trading relationships. All for what? Trump's ego and his inability to admit that his approach isn't working. As the 2026 USMCA review approaches, Trump's position gets weaker every day. He's burned through his leverage with threats that didn't work and tariffs that hurt American interests. Carney, meanwhile, has positioned Canada as the reasonable party trying to maintain a beneficial relationship despite American aggression. The contrast couldn't be starker. Trump's approach is all bluster and no substance, all threats and no results. Carney's approach is strategic, patient, and ultimately more effective. It's a reminder that in international relations, as in so many areas, competence matters more than volume. Thanks for watching. If you want to see how Trump's trade wars are affecting other relationships, check out our other videos. And if you want to stay updated on how Trump's failures are reshaping global economics, be sure to subscribe for more in-depth analyses and breaking news coverage.